Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something I know we've all felt, digital burnout. Look, we live in this absolutely incredible era of digital abundance, right? But here's the thing. There is a massive fundamental mismatch happening right now. Our primitive brains, which are literally wired for scarcity and survival, are just losing this daily exhausting battle to our shiny little rectangles. We're completely overwhelmed by a modern ecosystem that hands us instant gratification with just the tap of a screen. So we're going to break down exactly why this is draining you, and much more importantly, how we're actually going to fix it. I mean, think about it for a second. Have you ever closed an app on your phone, stared at your home screen for maybe half a second, and then instantly opened that exact same app again? Or, felt a genuine wave of panic when you had to wait in line for just 2 minutes without your device? We've all been there. I want to establish right out of the gate that this is not a moral failing on your part. It really isn't. It's a biological trap. Your brain is actually doing exactly what it evolved to do. It's just doing it in an environment it was never designed for. So here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the overstimulated modern brain. Second, the pleasure-pain seesaw. Third, we'll dive into the intentional boredom protocol. Fourth, embracing the discomfort. And finally, we'll wrap up with the power of stillness. All right, section 1, the overstimulated modern brain. Before we can even talk about boredom, we really need to look at this constant digital task switching that's draining your executive energy every single day. See, there's this massive hidden cost to our digital habits. The researcher Sophie Leroy actually calls it attention residue, and it makes total sense. Every time you switch from a state of deep work to quickly check an email or a notification, your brain doesn't just cleanly move on. It's not a clean break. Fragments of that previous task literally linger in your working memory. This triggers what's known as the Zeigarnik effect, meaning your brain holds onto a high state of tension for those incomplete tasks. So you're dragging around this heavy cognitive weight all day long, which just absolutely tanks your attention span and spikes your anxiety. And the wild part? We can actually see this happening in real time. When you're in a state of deep focus, EEG brainwave patterns show this really sustained beta and strong frontal midline theta activity. Basically, your prefrontal cortex is just humming along beautifully. But the exact moment a digital notification forces you to switch tasks, that focus is completely shattered. Your P300 amplitude drops, which means your attention is officially divided. Sure, you're getting a tiny little hit of pleasure from that distraction, but you are paying a massive hidden tax in your cognitive performance. Which brings us to section 2, the pleasure-pain seesaw. This right here is the root cause of our constant need to switch tasks, and it all comes down to the neurobiological link between pleasure and pain. This absolutely crucial concept comes from Dr. Anna Lembke. She's a Stanford psychiatrist and the author of Dopamine Nation. She explains that in the brain, pleasure and pain are actually co-located. They function exactly like opposite sides of a seesaw. So when you look at your phone and get that quick spike of dopamine, boom, that's the pleasure side tipping down. But your brain always has to restore balance or homeostasis. So after that quick high, the seesaw doesn't just return to level. Nope, it tips equal and opposite over to the side of pain, plunging you straight into a dopamine deficit. Dr. Lembke uses this incredible metaphor of these little gremlins hopping onto the pain side of your seesaw to bring it back to level. But here's the catch. With repeated exposure, like constantly snacking on digital media all day, these gremlins start to multiply. They literally set up camp on the pain side. In science, this is called neuroadaptation. It's kind of amazing, really, how your brain actually downregulates its own dopamine transmission just to protect itself. But over time, your baseline joy set point drops. Suddenly, you need way more scrolling, more videos, more novelty. Not to feel high, but just to feel normal. So if you've been feeling, restless, unfocused, or just generally off lately, take a look at these universal symptoms of clinical withdrawal. When we constantly bombard our reward pathways with all this easy digital dopamine, and then we finally put the phone down, those pain gremlins crash our seesaw down hard. Those everyday feelings of brain fog, irritability, and anxiety that you feel when you're disconnected, that is quite literally your body reacting to a chronic dopamine deficit state. It's wild to think about. So, how do we fix this? Section 3, the intentional boredom protocol. We need a clinical solution to this neuroadaptation. It's often popularized online as a dopamine fast, but scientifically speaking, we're talking about a behavioral cognitive reset. Let's look at a specific cognitive behavioral therapy protocol developed by experts like Dr. Cameron Sapah. Notice that step 1 is stimulus control. You guys, you cannot just rely on raw willpower here. You're fighting a billion-dollar algorithm that was designed specifically to hijack your brain. Willpower is going to lose every single time. You have to actually alter your physical environment. Put the phone in another room, use app blockers, turn off those notifications. Then, step 2, you commit to abstinence. And finally, step 3, mindfulness, which is absolutely critical for what happens next. Because you really need to prepare for the beach ball effect. When you take away all that constant digital noise, it's exactly like taking your hands off a beach ball that you've been holding underwater for hours. All those suppressed thoughts, the anxieties, those random existential questions, they are going to shoot right to the surface and hit you hard. The silence is going to be deafening, and this is exactly why mindfulness is a required step. You have to learn to just sit with that splash, observe the discomfort, and actually process those feelings without instantly reaching for a screen to numb out. All right, section 4. Embracing the discomfort. We really need to completely reframe this experience. The agonizing boredom and anxiety of putting our devices away, it's not a failure at all. It is actually a biological triumph. As Dr. Lemke points out, we get our dopamine indirectly by paying for it up front. And this brings us to this fascinating concept called hormesis. Hormesis is basically the science of how engaging in right-sized pain, think of things like an ice-cold shower, strenuous exercise, or yes, the intentional discomfort of boredom, how that actually sets your body's natural healing mechanisms into motion. By voluntarily leaning into the pain side of the seesaw, you're triggering your brain to upregulate true, enduring, feel-good neurotransmitters. It's like a workout for your mind. When you actually restrict your digital triggers, here is the exact timeline of what's happening inside your head. Now, weeks 1 and 2, that's acute withdrawal. This is where the cravings and anxiety really spike. But look at weeks 3 to 6, early readoption. Your actual dopamine receptor density is increasing. By months 2 to 6, your working memory and cognitive recovery return. So that initial physical pain of boredom you feel, that is quite literally the sensation of your neural pathways actively healing and shifting. You're feeling the upgrade happening. I really want you to burn this number into your mind. 14. For most people, it takes 14 days of sustained, intentional restriction to get over that acute withdrawal hump. Just 2 weeks. If you can push through those 14 days, those pain gremlins finally start hopping off the seesaw. Your homeostasis begins to restore, and you're going to start feeling genuine cognitive clarity and natural motivation all over again. And that leaves us to our final section. Section 5, the power of stillness. This is the ultimate payoff of the whole protocol. When we endure that temporary pain of boredom, we actually unlock our highest cognitive abilities. See, when your brain is finally allowed to do absolutely nothing, it isn't just sitting there idling. It activates what scientists call resting neural states and engages the default mode network. Without that constant stream of external input, a totally diffused set of nuclei all across your brain starts talking to each other. It takes all your complex daily experiences and integrates them in this beautiful neural symphony. This is when memory consolidation and neuroplastic reorganization actually happen, and the best part? It completely restores your sensitivity to simple, everyday joys like the sound of rain outside or just a really good cup of coffee. There's a brilliant saying that boredom is the midwife of invention. Think about it. You literally cannot have a truly original thought without a period of boredom. If you're constantly just reacting to whatever an algorithm feeds you, you are never giving your brain the empty space it needs to explore a new idea, ask a big question, or discover what actually brings you deep, meaningful joy. Boredom isn't something to run from. It's the essential space where true creativity is born. So if there's one crucial point to take away from this explainer, it's this. True focus, motivation, and happiness absolutely require us to stop numbing ourselves with digital abundance. To restore our natural dopamine balance, we have to do the counterintuitive thing. We must intentionally reduce those easy, unearned digital pleasures and deliberately lean into the right-sized pain of stillness, focus, and yes, intentional boredom. I want to leave you with a bit of a challenge today. Take a look at your schedule this week. Could you endure just one single day of intentional boredom? No podcasts playing in the background, no scrolling while you wait in line, no easy digital escapes whatsoever. Could you face the terrifying quiet, weather that initial splash at the beach ball, and just see what your healing brain actually comes up with? Give it a try. Reclaim your incredible capacity for deep focus. Thanks so much for learning with me today.